So let me get this straight. If humans can cosplay as other humans, then why can't spirits cosplay as other spirits? Let's talk about it. What's up, everybody? It's your favorite auntie, uncle. It's your favorite pirate captain. It's your favorite goddess king. It's your favorite hood healer, high priestess, motivational dominatrix, LadySpeech in the place to be, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. You could be anywhere in the world. As a matter of fact, you are somewhere in the world, and you're choosing to share a little bit of time and space with me. So thank you for that. If you like what I'm doing, if you like what you see, if you're feeling any of this, if you're feeling any of me, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notifications bell, so you can keep up with all of my shenanigans, happenings, goings ups, and goings downs and things. Now, let's get into today's video. Let's get into today's rant. Shall we? It's been a while since I hit you with one of these. I'm back, and yes, darling, it's a rant. Let's talk about it. So, listen. I said what I said, and I'm gonna break it down, and I'm gonna say it again. If humans can cosplay other humans, why can't spirit cosplay other spirits? AKA, no. The spirit of that closed faith and indigenous ancient religion is in fact not connecting with you. Let's get into it. This rant is inspired by yet another status I ran across where someone was speaking about they are new in their spiritual journey, and they, instead of being directed inward, instead of utilizing their own ethnic background, instead of using their own ancestral background and connection, they took a deep dive into spiritual and cultural appropriation. They found out some information about an African spiritual traditional religion, and now they've read about it, and they feel as though they have been contacted by this entity. Now, the African traditional religion or spiritual practice that the spirit is connected to, that they think that they are in contact with, is part of a closed practice. Now, what do I mean when I say closed practice? A closed practice is a spiritual practice that is only open to those who are initiated into it or born into it. They have a blood and or spiritual tie or legacy to it. It is closed to everyone else. So you cannot take bits and pieces from that spiritual faith. You cannot take rituals, you cannot take practices, you cannot take things that are part of that faith and take them in as your own and expect the same results, okay? I see this a lot. I see this a lot, and I see this a lot with all people. I see this with African American people. I see this with other indigenous people. But I see it the most, and I see it done the most violently and the most disrespectfully with children of the colonizer, aka white people. Let's talk about the danger of spiritually appropriating other people's faith and religion. And I want to focus in on, hone in on this aspect. The aspect of a lot of you end up appropriating spiritual practices or native indigenous practices that aren't yours, that are outside of your cultural, ethnic, ancestral scope and realm. A lot of you end up doing this, and you think who you're seeing, you think who you are meeting, you think who you are communing with is a spirit that is associated with that religion that you are appropriating, but It is not. It is in fact not. What you are dealing with, what you are messing with, what you are in communion with, oftentimes 9 times out of 10, 9.99 times out of 10 is an imposter spirit, is a cosplaying spirit, is a spirit that has nothing to do with that faith, with that religion, with that spirituality. And all I gotta say to that is, girl, you in danger. You in danger. Let's take a deep dive. If humans can cosplay other humans, real life and fictional, if humans can wear the costumes of other humans, real life and fictional, what is to stop a spirit from wearing the costume of another spirit? What is to stop the spirits from wearing a cosplay of another spirit? I'm going to tell you what's to stop them. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that right there is the danger that many of you end up exposing yourself to when you appropriate spiritualities and parts of spiritual practices that do not belong to you. Let me tell you something. You think your benevolent spirits are the only spirits that see you, that watch you, that you show up on the radars are of? Do you think that only your ancestors, that only the spirits that you are attracted to, that are in your bloodline, see you? No, 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 no. There are many spirits coming from many different backgrounds that are absolutely waiting to prey on your spirit, your soul, and your lineage. And one of the easiest ways for them to do this is for you to hop head first into spiritual practice without a foundation, for you to use and enter through spiritual practice, especially the spiritual practice of somebody else, through cultural appropriation. A closed practice is a closed practice is a closed practice is a closed practice. Very rarely, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, very rarely will they make exceptions for other people to enter into their practice. If they do, there still needs to be some type of connection established, and that connection will be established by the spirits. But oftentimes, what that person who is an outsider, who is being called into this space by the spirit, the path they have to go to in order to claim what it is spirit wants them to claim is not an easy one. A lot of you rip parts and pieces from indigenous spiritual practices. Number one, because that's how you've been indoctrinated. We've been influenced under Western capitalistic colonial culture to just steal from people and not have any regards for where things are coming from. So the fact that we do this, the fact that a lot of y'all have done this, it's not by accident, it's on purpose. We've been indoctrinated into being this way. This video and videos like it are for us to wake up and to hopefully stop doing that, because not only is it disrespectful, it puts you in spiritual danger, girl, in spiritual danger. I don't know how many times, as a practitioner of hoodoo, of conjure, of voodoo, as someone who's been initiated into Ifa, as someone who still has other initiations to pursue in other African traditional religions because the spirits are calling me, I can't tell you how many times over the years, through my 20 years of practicing, 25 plus years of practicing, I've come across people, a lot of white people, but other people who say, the spirit of this African religion has called me into this religion, the spirit of this religion, the spirit, no it hasn't. 9 times out of 10, it hasn't. A lot of times what's going on is you got exposed to a little bit of information about that spirit. Something resonated with you, okay? Your thirst and your hunger for spirituality, for belonging, for connection is what alerted spirits who essentially are here to be hangers on. Essentially, they're here to cause chaos. Essentially, they're here to feast off of your dysfunction, to cause terror. Those spirits saw that desperation, saw that need for acceptance, and they exploited the exploitation that you willingly initiated. And when you get in that position, that's dangerous. I have met so many people who think they have met Oshun, and they have not. I have met so many people who think they met Hanuman and they have not. I have met so many people who thought they met Kalima and they have not. I've met so many people who thought they met Tonatsin and they have not. I have met so many people who thought they met Oya, Obata, La Alegua and they have not. I'm not saying that it ain't possible and sometimes people won't be called to religions, to spirituality that they are not a part of, but I'm saying that if you are called to it, the road to get there, number one, it's not easy and it ain't for the faint of heart. You are going to suffer a little bit throughout that because that road belongs to those who have a birthright to it, who have an ancestral connection to it, who have a cultural connection to it. And if you are called by the spirits to come outside of that, to come outside of that, to pursue that religion in that space, honey, they're gonna put you through the ringer. And you also are gonna be destined to do great things in that space, most likely, but it ain't for the faint of heart. A lot of you, because you refuse to do the real foundational spiritual work around spirituality, because you want to spiritually bypass foundational work when it comes to spirituality, you end up putting yourselves in very dangerous positions. A lot of y'all skip steps. As someone who is a practitioner, who is a magic maker, who is a root worker, who is a spell worker, who is a conjure queen, who is a conjure king, who is a hoodooist, who is currently on the road into initiation to achieve my mambo supuen in regards to voodoo, who has studied native indigenous religions, who has been invited to walk part of the red road with my native indigenous brothers and sisters. This is not a game to play with. The spirits are real. The spirits are real. The spirits are real. The spirits are real. And let me tell you, when you are called to participate by the spirits in a space that is not, you don't have a cultural or religious or spiritual or ancestral connection to, it's a powerful honor and one you must respect. And you must go into there understanding that you are a guest. You are not an expert. I have the privilege and the honor of being invited into other people's spiritual space as an expert, as a priest, as a priestess, as a master healer. I have been invited by my native indigenous brethren and sisters to participate in sweat, to participate in ceremony. I have been invited by other people from other indigenous religions to participate in their spiritual space. I come into that space very much grounded in my own practice, with my own ancestors, with my own ideologies, faiths, and philosophies. And then when I walk into the space of others, I am able to share space. I am able to participate and partake in those ceremonies, those religious spaces in the proper space of a guest. I'm able to be honored in all of my magic and my fullness. I'm able to honor my ancestors, and I'm able to honor the ancestors of these people who invited me in. I never speak over them in their space. When I am given the space to speak or to be or to sing or to contribute medicine and magic, I do so within the confines of their boundaries. And I always recognize that when I am in their space, I am a guest. It is okay to participate from the perspective of appreciation in other people's faith and religions. It's never okay to appropriate. And a lot of you, because you refuse to learn this lesson, you are being called into native indigenous, into black religious spiritual spaces, into other spaces that have nothing and no connection to you by spirits who only want to abuse you, take advantage of you, and make sure that you don't win. When I say you in danger, girl, when I say you in danger, boy, when I say you in danger, person, I mean that. Cultural appropriation is the quickest way to cross and hex and curse yourself. Let me say that again. Cultural appropriation, spiritual appropriation is one of the quickest, easiest, and simplest ways to cross, to hex, and to condemn yourself. On a spiritual level, that is. If humans can cosplay other humans, spirits can cosplay other spirits. They see your desperation, your need for acceptance, coupled and married with your want to connect deeper spiritually. They also see your laziness, you not being able, wanting to do the work to get deeper into your ancestry too. They see your need to spiritually bypass the real work, and what they will do is exploit you. If you are participating in a closed practice faith innocently because you resonated with this thing, and then you learn that this is a cultural appropriation or spiritual appropriation, and you refuse to let that thing go, even though you don't have rights to it and you should let it go, please know that you open yourself up to spirits that see you, that will cosplay. And they will use those tools that don't belong to you, that aren't connected to you, that you shouldn't have in your hand. They'll use it against you. Let's use the example of white sage. I used to burn a lot of white sage. In the beginning of my spiritual journey, I didn't know the history behind white sage. I was a victim of spiritual commercialism. I was a victim of the colonialism and capitalization of spirituality. It wasn't until years later that I learned that white sage is part of a closed indigenous practices, the burning of it. Now let me be clear. White sage and variations of the sage plant can be found on many different land masses on this planet. But the way that we use it, as far as putting it in bundles and lighting it and burning it to cleanse the space, that belongs to a spiritual practice called smudging, and it belongs to particular tribes associated with First Nations people on American soil. And I'm not just talking about the United States, I'm talking about through Canada, through the United States, through Mexico, all of the Americas. Not every Native Indigenous First Nations tribe across the Americas used that plant in that way, but some did. Did you know that up until 1979, 1980, it was illegal for First Nations Indigenous people on American soil to practice their Native Indigenous spirituality? Part of some of that, and part of a couple of those tribes, that plant, that sage belongs to them. I burnt sage in the beginning of my spiritual journey. And then I was told by First Nations Indigenous people why it wasn't appropriate. I was invited in to share spiritual space with elders, First Nations Indigenous elders and peers. And I understood their pain, because as a displaced African in America, as someone whose history is ripe with being stolen and taken from my land and not being allowed to practice the way that my ancestors practiced, I understood on a soul level. I do not fault myself for using it in the beginning. Those were the tools that were left to me, and those were the tools that I took advantage of. I'm not going to change that. I accept that that's who I was, and I accept that the purity of my heart in those moments, and I accept, even with all the purity of my heart, the wrongness of it. And I simply make amends by not doing it. When you know better, you do better. Have I said my prayers to the First Nations people of this land, and do I continue to, in apology for my participation in that propaganda? I have, and I will continue to. I have, and I will continue to. In this ranting, yes, I'm upset by a lot of you, but I also understand and recognize that there are a lot of us who are learning. I invite us all to continuously be open to learning and unlearning. Healing, as well as your spiritual path, purpose, and walk, is a journey. It's not a destination. You will have points of destinations throughout this, but it's a whole journey. Understand that you, as you grow in this journey and expand and ascend, you will look back on your past self and see where you were wrong. See where you got it all the way wrong, and see where you were all the way innovative and got it all the way right. When you know better, do better. So do better. When you know better, do better. So do better. I want to be clear that studying about closed spiritualities and faiths is different from appropriating and stealing from closed spiritualities and faiths. There are a lot of you who have a curiosity about religion and spirituality. I'm one of those people. I do love to learn about all things spiritual. I love to learn about the way other people interact with Creator and God. There's nothing wrong with getting a hold of the information that's out there. There's everything wrong with getting a hold of that information in a nefarious way. There's everything wrong with claiming that information as yours, not giving credit to where you got the information, and then stealing those ideas and making something different from that. There's everything wrong with taking parts of a closed practice and picking and choosing and using things to create your own practice. Everything wrong with that. Everything wrong with that. Everything wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being curious. Nothing wrong with being able to satisfying your intellectual thirst with information that is made available to you from these closed practices. There's many closed practices where you can learn about the basics, where you can learn about the front room of the spiritual practice. But when it comes to learning the deeper principles, if that's closed off to you, it's closed off to you. And please be aware that the deeper you get into that, you might find yourself in a position where you fuck around and find out. There are spirits that are waiting to take advantage of your desperation, waiting to take advantage of your ignorance. There are spirits who are waiting to take advantage of your inability to adhere to boundaries. There are some spirits who absolutely understand when you get told no, you're not going to pay attention, so they're waiting for you. They know you're going to pursue some things. They know you're going to walk down a hallway you don't need to, and there they will be, waiting to attach themselves to you and make your life a living hell. Make your legacy a living hell. There's some of you who put curses on yourself and your life by simply meddling into things you have no business messing with. If humans can cosplay, what's to stop a spirit from cosplaying? Answer, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So when someone tells you that that is a closed practice, watch your step around that, you probably should. You probably should. Because if you don't, you might get beat up in this place by a spirit. And that's unpleasant. And also, let me say this. Sometimes, especially this is for a lot of you white people, sometimes the spirits of Native, Indigenous, and African religions call you to them because they want to punish you for what your ancestors have done, and they want to punish you because you have the resources to make it right, but you won't. So sometimes you are being called by that spirit, but it's not because they want to bless you. It's because they are fully prepared to hold you accountable for what you and your ancestors have done. I said what I said. And you better believe that. There are sometimes, if you continue to choose to appropriate, if you continue to choose to steal, there are some spirits that see you. Let me remind you something about Native Indigenous people. We were not heaven and hell people. Oh, no, no. We understood that all of the polarities exist on this planet, and we dealt with our spirits in that capacity. A lot of y'all only do surface research when it comes to, and that's a lot of spiritual and cultural appropriation. Y'all do superficial surface research, not understanding that there is a wealth, a depthness of knowledge and like depth to these religions. That's why you got to be initiated. That's why you got to be born into it, because there's just simply things you don't understand. Sometimes you appropriate something, and when you get the warnings from the descendants that you shouldn't be messing with that, and you continue to mess with that, then you do actually get the attention of the spirits of that space, and not in a good way. Some of you have damned your lineages to lifetimes of servitude because you refuse to listen when someone sets a boundary with you and say stop. Y'all better watch what you're doing out here with these spirits. Some of these things have never been human. They don't deal on the same moral compasses as we do. Fuck around and find out. Listen, y'all gonna do what you gonna do no matter what I say. So let this serve as a warning, and I'm clear because I done put this out there, and I put it out here several times, and anytime spirit tells me to say something about it, I do. So I don't feel guilty about any of you who get caught all the way up, especially when you don't listen. Now here's the thing. A lot of y'all think that I'm only talking to white people in this, and I'm not. I am talking a lot to y'all, but also black, indigenous people. You can do this too. There are a lot of non-black people who are dipping into hoodoo in ways that they shouldn't. That's a closed practice. Conjure is a closed practice. Also, there's a lot of black people dipping into other Native Indigenous faiths, pulling from the Hindi faith, pulling from the Native Indigenous faith. That's a closed practice. This goes to anybody and everybody. This goes to anybody and everybody. Do not appropriate people's magic. Do not appropriate people's spirituality. Do not. And like I said, there are exceptions to the rule, but please understand this. That exception to the rule has to go through hell in a handbasket and back again in order to establish legitimacy within any of those faiths and religions. And none of that is fun. You will be asked to sacrifice in ways that other people who have a blood lineage connection to that won't, because you don't have a connection to it. Quit playing with spirits, and quit playing with the spirits connected to people, religions, and cultures you have no connection to. Understand who you are. We all actually have a rich connection to something beautiful and amazing and divine. Those connections are different, but they're all potent and beautiful. When you appropriate other people's magic, you deny your own. You deny yourself access to something so beautiful, so organic, so uniquely tailored to you. And you put yourself in the crossfire of spirits who have nothing and want nothing to do with you. And you disrespect your own. You cut yourself off from your own potent magic when you do this. And you risk this happening generation after generation. Watch yourself. And please remember, honey, more than likely 9 times out of 10, the spirit from that closed faith doesn't belong to you. Isn't contacting you. You might be in contact with a cosplayer spirit. And in that case, you are in danger. This goes to my fellow African American people. Let me tell you something, as someone who is actually initiated into a EFI, someone who is pursuing their next phase in voodoo in regards to studying to be a mambo. You can't take a test on the internet and say I'm a child of Oshun. You can't take a test on the internet and declare that you are a child of Urzuli Dantor. It don't work like that. No, you can't. Just because you read some book about Haitian voodoo does not mean you are a practitioner, a hunsi of Haitian voodoo. Just because you read a book about New Orleans voodoo doesn't mean you are a child of those Loa. There are processes, respect it, and quit spiritually bypassing. Yeah, read the books. Yeah, trust your intuition, but understand that Native Indigenous spirituality is a lifestyle. It's soul deep, and it's nothing to play with. It's nothing nice to play with. If you come to these things with an open heart and you are truly called, I can speak my whole life as a testament of how beautiful and life-changing these things are. But if you come to it and you ain't serious or you're superficial, you will put yourself in the crosshairs of something that might end your life, that might curse your lineage, that might put you on a path that'll take you 3 or 4 lifetimes to get all the way off of. Watch yourselves out here in these magical streets. Do not appropriate things that don't belong to you. Put in research and study when it comes to your spirituality. Pace yourself and take your time. And understand that there's a lot of this that's a solo practice and wonderful, but there is a value in developing spiritual community, village, gurus, guides, and good teachers. This will help you not get caught up out in these spiritual streets with spirits that mean you nothing but harm. With all that being said, let me tell you that spirituality is a beautiful thing. When you connect to your own Native Indigenous roots, when you listen to your own ancestors and connect to your power, when you discover your own spirituality through the way of your spirits that have always been attached to you, it is healing and one of the most beautiful experiences you'll ever have. And I wish this for all of us. I wish this for all of you. But let me remind you that cultural appropriation, spiritual appropriation is never the way towards salvation or ascension. It's never the way. It's the way towards curses and hexes and generational curses. It's the way towards pissing your own spirits and ancestors off. It is the way for you to deny your own magic. So just say no to spiritual appropriation. Just say no to spiritual appropriation, and just say yes to playing the long game. And when it comes to your spirituality, putting in the work to understand yourself, putting in the work to do the research, putting in the work to connect, putting in the work to discovering your true magic and your true connection. And I swear to God, this will lead you to nothing but ascension, healing, beauty, and glory. And that's that. I'm not getting caught up in these spiritual streets, messing with the spirit that means you harm. If you made it to the end of this video, gold star for you. Gold star for you, gold star for you, gold star for you all. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me. Thank you so much for participating in this video. I appreciate you. Yes, I do. I appreciate you. Yes, I do. Wow. Thank you, honey. I love you. I love you. I live you. I love you. I live you. I love you. I live you. And on that note, I don't want to take up all your time. I just want to take up a little bit of your time. That is been accomplished. Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. So it's time to say goodbye. Just in case no one has told you today, you are wonderful. You are beautiful. You are divine. You're doing amazing, honey. You're doing amazing. You're doing amazing, baby. You're doing amazing. I want to remind you that we are all out here in these streets, hot messes. We are hot messes, and we are also priceless works of art. We can be both. We are both. Both are both, and that's what it is. Continue to work on where you are problematic, because each and every one of us are problematic. And also, please bask in the glory of your magnificence, because you're beautiful. Now, I want you to have a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, a good middle of the night. I want you to have a good moment, a good second, a good hour, a good week, a good day, a good decade, a good life. I want you to understand that you are beautiful, divine, and wonderful, and I appreciate you. You know the drill. You know the drill. If you like what I'm doing, if you like what you see, if you're feeling any of this, if you're feeling any of me, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notifications bell so you can keep up with all my shenanigans and happenings and goings ons and things. And on that note, I'm gonna let you go. Goddess, God, ancestors willing, I'll see you in another video. Mwah. Peace.